Hello and welcome to the Chuck and Big podcast. I am super stoked to be able to talk to some people that I never really thought I might be able to contact or get in touch with. And with the slowdown happening right now, it's given the opportunity. So I've got with me Jordan Biggie Steffens, all the way from South Australia. And no, there's no border restrictions here. We're actually able to do this. So it's all good. And yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, Jordan.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure to be on here. Thank you very much. It's always nice to chat. And look, like I said, the world is a strange place at the moment. So it's good to see everything you're doing with the Highland Games stuff, all the real different avenues you're going down with. I do watch it and do see it, and it's really cool. And again, a pleasure to be on this.
No, thank you. It's interesting you talk about different pathways because you've had quite the different pathways. And you've kind of delved, from Strongman, Highland Games into now doing circus events. And I'm just absolutely, enthralled by some of the stuff you're able to do with the people and, either lifting them up or twisting them around or twirling them. And I got to be honest with you, the Monopoly Man photo shoot, which I'm calling it, was absolutely mind blowing. I think so. Talk to me a little bit about where you're at right now, and you've had that awesome photo shoot. If nobody's checked it out, check it out. It's awesome. The cars are amazing. The photographer did an amazing job with the lighting and everything. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, look, you talk about all the different things I've done through my career, and, I always wanted to be the most well-rounded strongman I could possibly be. I wanted to be good at everything. I wanted to be, I guess, kind of like Misha Koklaev from Russia, who's been my childhood hero from young Biggie or little Biggie. I looked up to him, and he was just a superstar at everything. And I guess I wanted to do that with my own little bit of flair and my own little bit of touch. And he did everything to the he's the greatest strength athlete to ever walk the planet. If I could be half as good as him or a quarter as good as him, I would have done okay. But I guess now I moved away from competitive strongman, did many, many years in competitive strongman, competitive weightlifting, competitive Highland Games, competitive powerlifting, cross-lifting. I've done CrossFit comps as well. And, I've done a little bit of everything. But now in the circus stuff and, like I said, the Monopoly Man photo shoot that you so well put together was just so much fun because the reason behind that is if the photo of myself with the Clydesdale horses, which I put up, was a show of respect to the legendary Louis Cyr, who in the late 1800s, early 1900s held two horses with his arms clenched in front of the Queen. But I thought I'd take it to one step more and not little draft horses or little small horses. I used two giant Clydesdales instead. There is a piece of camera footage that no one's seen. No one's seen it, and I mean no one. Even the only people that have seen it that were there on the day. So that might be a piece of camera footage I bring out one day. But I'm looking to do an event, hopefully in the future with Circus, doing the exact same thing Louis Cyr did, except instead of holding two smaller horses, I'll be holding two Clydesdales. So that was basically behind the photo shoot. Really, was to pay my respects.
That's amazing. And, if we do that, we really got to push behind the scenes for a particular brand out of the U.S. that uses some Clydesdales in a lot of their Super Bowl commercials. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure, maybe that might be for the 2021 Super Bowl. Who knows?
Well, yeah, exactly. Any little avenue I can go down would be fantastic. But I tend to just do this stuff because I love doing it. The circus stuff is so much fun. It's very different to the strongman that I grew up with, but it's the original strongman. This is what gave us who we are as strongmen now. If it wasn't for these guys in the past, people like myself and yourself, our forefathers and generations before us, we wouldn't be where we are. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing without them. So, I just try and pay homage where I can.
It's interesting, though, that you've gone reverse cycle almost instead of going, like they did back in the day where it was sort of circus and then through, now you've kind of gone strongman and then back to the circus stuff. And I think, again, it pays homage to the actual true roots of it all because it is very much the showmanship, which more than ever, I think showmanship's a massive priority and it should be at events, everything from the MC, to the competitors putting on a heck of a show to the audience, and not so much about the ego-driven mindset that comes into it, because in all aspect of it, it's very much about the connection with you and the audience and the event and everything else, because that's what gives you that, long-term, damn, that was an amazing event, compared to, hey, you know what? I got my medal. I'm super stoked. And then 10 minutes later, you're like, well, where's the next medal? So, divulge a little bit into that.
Yeah, look, I think for me, through my whole career, you can chat to anyone that I competed against. I enjoyed the putting on the show more than doing anything else. I think as a competitor, I enjoyed the show side more than the competitive side, which probably led to me being where I am going into Circus, right? So I guess as a circus performer now, or leading into circus performing, the years of competing was great. As I say to most people that ask me the question, I've won a lot of competitions, beaten a lot of good guys, but guess what? I've lost a lot more than I've won, a lot more. But I said it before the Arnolds the other year, win, lose or draw, no matter what happens, I will be the strongman that everyone remembers. Not because I won, because of hopefully leaving a lasting image of what I do for giving the crowd their money. These people pay to come and see you do stuff, especially at the Arnolds, especially at Worlds. People pay for you to put on a show. And again, don't get me wrong, when you get to the top level, it's all about making first place, making the money. It's their job. That's what they're paid to do. But on the other side of things, it's made for television. Television has to get viewers. How do they get viewers? They get personalities on there. Some of the guys that go to World's Strongest Man aren't the best strongmen in the world. There's guys, I'm sure, that live in the middle of nowhere that carry tree logs around that weigh 800-900 kilos that are stronger than the guys you see at World's Strongest Man, but they don't go on there because of their personality. But a lot of the guys at the top level have to have that personality, or it won't sell tickets and it won't make money for the promoters. So I guess it's one of those things where a lot of athletes are blessed with that, because a crowd can tell when you're putting it on. There's a big difference between you actually wanting it, loving it, enjoying being there and being passionate, versus a guy that just yells and screams a lot for the sake of yelling and screaming a lot. And I'm sure, like yourself, you've seen strongman shows, you've seen Highland Games, you've seen it all, you've competed. You know when somebody's heart's in it versus somebody that's just trying to get their heart into it. So I guess for me, it was quite an easy change from competitive strongman to circus, because it's a performance. When you're on stage, it's a performance. You need to back up what you can do. But again, it's you've got a crowd of people coming in to watch a show. You need to put on the best show possible, and at the best level you can. So I do agree with you. I think the next step for a lot of guys in the strongman is in Australia. And again, a lot of people are blessed with the charisma, all that type of stuff. But, it's just about enjoying it as well. And, yeah, medals are great. Winning's great. But, if you don't enjoy something, why do it, I guess?
Oh, big time. And I think one of the big components for me was that, I came in as a mature athlete, and for me, it was about the stories and it was about the camaraderie, and I'm past my prime. I was a gridiron athlete that kind of peaked and then kind of went from there. So I think now more than ever, I just want to see those moments where these insane athletes that are around me and women just put on these incredible performances where they are so stoked about what they just did that all you can do is just feel for them and go, oh my God, this is like an incredible moment shared with others. And it's funny 100%. that almost, and it comes almost down to like, you could drink scotch by yourself, but it's better shared.
Agreed. We can drink whatever we want and share it together.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But look, you're 100% right. And you know what? Once I stepped back from competing and took on more of a coaching role with the state weightlifting team here in SA, I get as much joy out of watching my athletes win gold medals and results than almost I ever did as a competitor. I'm a very animated coach. I don't sit still. I move around. I lift with the lifters. It's embarrassing. I'm sure it's embarrassing for my lifters. but I feel like I'm on the platform with them. You know, you just want the best for them, and I hope. And again, this is this is what you're breeding in Victoria, and I love the photos, and I love the community that you're doing, and the friendship. And I, as a competitor, you know, I wanted to win every competition. Guys like Luke Reynolds, guys like Mark Wells, guys like Dan Macri, guys like Eben, you know, guys like Derek Boyer, whoever in my generation of strongmen, and even into the new generation where I was coming sort of to the end, there was nothing more I wanted to do than was to win. But if they had beaten me at my best, I was so happy for them because they had worked their ass off. I know how much they'd worked their ass off, and it was just cool to get your ass kicked sometimes because it just made me want it more. But to know, to give all that you've got for someone to beat you, you just sit there in shock and go, how did they do that? And you feel good for them. I always felt good. Like, don't get me wrong, I was pissed sometimes as well. Yeah. You know, I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to come second. To be a moment there where you're like, oh, for God's sake, I made a mistake or this, that, and the other. But they're your mates. I traveled the scene with most of those guys for years, and traveled, you know, and competed with these guys, and you know, the banter and the stories, because we've got so many from so many years. You know, you couldn't help but feel good for them as well, and they brought you up with them, even though you wanted to kick their ass.
But that's so interesting that you say that, because I think it gets lost in the commercialism of now, because they, you know, a lot of the younger generation, or even back when I was a kid, it was like, these are the elites and this is what they get, and they get the money and they get the pride and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, now that I've had chats with yourself and Luke and all the other guys, and know that it's as unglamorous as it can be, you know, and it's the same as when I played gridiron, it's like, hey, you know what, unless you're in that sort of 5%, the glory is amazing and the cash is great, but the rest of you are just fighting daily. And it's incredible how that all works. So you have to really rely on, again, that, you know, companionship, the camaraderie, that friendship, and then be able to bounce off each other so that your performances are at a certain state, at a certain level, you know, and that's sort of that whole, the weakest link, right? Like, who's the weakest link, and make sure that weaker link is high so that the actual comp is high.
Absolutely. And like you said, people think that it's glamorous, and you know what? I've done plenty of World's Strongest Man level competitions, qualifiers for World's Strongest Man, Arnold top pro shows, traveled all around the world and done competitions, represented Australian weightlifting many times. You get the glamour for 30 seconds when you're on stage, and then it's over and done with. I remember my first World's Strongest Man qualifier. I was 21. I still had the mindset of, I'm going to be World's Strongest Man one day. You know, I'm lifetime drug-free. And my real wake-up call was World's Strongest Man qualifiers in Melbourne at the FitX, where I was lined up against Jeremy Hogg in the first event. It was like a 130 barrel carry for distance. I was heavy. And we're warmed up, ready to go. The cameras are on us. The crowd's there. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, this is my first pro show. I'm like 21, like young. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to, you know, give this. And we're ready to go. And Colin Bryce has come over, relax, boys. The TVs aren't ready yet. And I'm like, gives a rat's ass if the TV's not ready yet. Let's go. No, you wait for the TVs to be ready. We waited 10 minutes at least.
Wow.
So we'd cooled down, and then Colin's like, cool, boys, to the barrel. We've set up to the barrel and gone. And that was my first real look at how world level TV shows, strongman events are run. It's not made for the competitors. It's made for television. You know, the top guys, you know, can sort of get a little bit of sway into things because they're top guys. But I was a brand newbie in that year. And, you know, events through the night. We had the deadlift. Actually, it was the next year at World's Strongest Man qualifiers. We had the deadlift at the pro show. The pro show was running 2 hours behind. We'd warmed up. We had to wait 2 hours and then re-warm up again for the deadlift.
Wow.
So, you know, it's one of those things where, yeah, people think this is glamorous. People just think we get given tons of money. You know, you're a pro strongman, the world just falls at your feet. I did a pro show. I came back to Adelaide. I went back to bouncing in a nightclub again. I went back to training like normal again. Did I have $1 million in my bank account? No. Did anyone really give a rat's about me? My sponsors, And of course, my family, obviously, is not that no one gave a rat's about me. But, at the top end, like, you're just another guy. It's only in recent times guys like Ed Hall and Thor and guys like that who've pushed themselves onto mainstream media, TVs and movies, which I try and do myself. I just take their aspect and try and think about how I can make that relative to myself. But those guys are superstars, are charismatic, like I was saying before. And yeah, it's a very, I think for newbies or guys that have done the sport for a while but step into the limelight for the first time, it's a bit of a, I don't know, it's a bit of a letdown sometimes. Even another story from my first Worlds qualifier was event 5 on day 2, last event. The expo was closing and the events hadn't been run yet. And we were in the last event and my heat got cancelled because we didn't have enough time. So they just put me and one of the other guys down as did not finish, but they just didn't run it. They're just like, look, we don't have enough time to run you. We're just going to put you down as it did not finish. And that was it. It wasn't like, sorry, it was bad luck.
This is it.
And I was devastated, absolutely devastated. This was my big opportunity, but it is what it is. That is life. Life is not fair all the time. You just got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and go harder next time and make an opportunity. But learn from those things. Learn from it. Learn from what the other guys are doing. Watch the pro guys. Watch them when you get the opportunity. Learn from them because there's so much that can be learned by just watching what they do. Just the little things that they do can make a huge, huge difference. And like I said, I try and take as much from every competition I've done for the past 15 years and try and take a little bit from everyone to make myself better.
Well, that's a great segue into, we had a little pregame chat here and, planes, trains, and automobiles. And if you don't know Jordan's history, check out some footage of the train, the plane, and there's a truck. So we'll put that in the automobile category. But, I think the one thing that comes behind it is you look at a lot of it and, it's a mental struggle and it's a respect for yourself, but a respect for the implement or the sport or the equipment, because that relationship has to be built pretty quick. And you've had so many diverse implements or diverse things that I want to delve into, especially the plane. There was sort of only a couple of people that have pulled a particular plane, and you really had to, kind of go back and see who had done it, see the kind of what went down, because it's similar to a stone, right? You go to a stone and sometimes it's never been lifted before. So how the hell do you do it? So give me a bit of insight.
Well, look, like yourself, playing gridiron for years and years, you have to get comfortable with the people you're playing with, right? You have to understand their style. I don't know, how many years did you play gridiron for?
It would have been about 6 years.
So you played gridiron for 6 years. You would have played with guys who you knew for years, the newbies, and you had to get used to the newbies and stuff like that. It's a very similar situation where, I was so lucky because I made so many phone calls. I called Colin Bryce from World's Strongest Man and said, Colin, how do you guys do this at Worlds? He gave me the rundown. I rang David Huxley, who had pulled 747s, 737s. He's the man that's pulled the most planes in history. He's pulled them all around the world. I rang him like instantly. And we had 12 days turnaround. So I pulled the train. So I can give you the timeline. So I basically wanted to pull the train to be the first guy in 21 years to pull a train on Australian soil. But I was the first guy to pull a steam train in goodness knows how long it hasn't. Steam trains don't get pulled very often for the difficulty of pulling them because it's not really seen as, you can do things that look just as impressive, but it's done easier, which just looks as cool for television. So I pulled the train to raise money for Steam Ranger here in Mount Barker in the Adelaide Hills. I went on Sunrise the next day with Sam Mack because Channel 9 and Channel 10 filmed the whole train pull, and there was a massive spectacle around it, which was great. It was I need to thank both Channel 9 and Channel 7 for that because footage of that train pull ended up in Texas and stuff like that. So it really went very worldwide, and which was great for me and great for Steam Ranger. They raised so much money, which is really important, because that's why I do a lot of this stuff is to raise money for charities, for health, for well-being, all that type of stuff. So we sort of did the train pool, sorry. Then we sort of went from there. I did the interview on Sunrise, and Koshi on Sunrise was like, what do you want to do next? I said, mate, it would be my dream to pull a plane, thinking in my mind that, yeah, right, good luck. To get onto the tarmac at an airport is just
Be
impossible.
Careful what you wish for.
I know, right? I had a phone call 20 minutes after the interview. A lady here in Adelaide named Sharon, who's been my PR lady for the last 4 years, said, look, I work for Craniofacial Australia. Are you really serious about pulling the plane? And would you like to do it to raise money for craniofacial? Now, for those who don't know what craniofacial is, it's basically for people that have suffered head injuries and stuff like that. So say if you're born with a cleft lip, or you've been hit by a car and you've lost some face or stuff like that, or broken something, orbital bones. So Professor David Davidson here in Adelaide is the world-renowned known craniofacial specialist. He started basically craniofacial around the world. He has universities named after him in the US and the UK. He is one of, like I said, the most well-known craniofacial specialist in the world. He was retiring. So what we did is we brought craniofacial together with Qantas and Sunrise. So we had 12 days to raise money for craniofacial and for me to pull the plane. So in 12 days, we raised 20 grand for craniofacial. We went down to the airport, which Sharon had a contact Adelaide Airport. So the good news is Sunrise had the connection to Qantas, Sharon had the connection to Adelaide Airport, and I had the connection to my engineer, Matthew Leslie, who's basically, if you ever see a photo, you'll see a massive dude standing next to me. That's my engineer and one of my best mates from my car club. He basically does all the behind-the-scenes stuff so I don't have to. So I guess, Josh, the big thing for me is I have the most wonderful team of people around me to support me. I am so lucky to have the support I do, and I wouldn't be where I am without them. So I made all the phone calls. I went down to CMV Trucking here in Adelaide, pulled a tow truck for trucks, which was 45 tons with like 25 wheels on the ground. I think I moved at 5 meters and thought I was going to snap my Achilles off.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was ridiculously hard. It was probably the hardest pull I've done just for the way the truck was set up. And yeah, 12 days after the train pull, we pulled the Qantas 737 at Adelaide Airport with millions of people around Australia watching. Professor David was there to see it. All his years of hard work, he went to Africa in the 80s on his own accord, his own money, to do craniofacial surgeries for kids in Africa. Like, this guy, I think a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of people doing a lot more amazing things than I would ever do. Pulling a plane and train and truck are just things I do because that's what I've trained to do since I was a teenager. These guys are doing things to save people's lives, and if I can give back a little something to these guys who have been so good to so many people by doing something that I love to do anyway, it's just what I want to do. And like I said, it was the team around me that helped me get there as well. Like, a lot of people just go, wow, Biggie, you got to pull a plane. And it was the people around me that got me there as well. And, that mindset, having so many beautiful minds with me as well. And my engineer, Matt, does all the stuff behind the scenes. He talks to the engineers of Qantas to make sure the tyre pressure's fine, to make sure the plane's set up right. We tested it that morning, so I actually pulled the plane before going on TV. But if you watch the TV footage, it's just hammering rain. And I don't think I've been that nervous ever, knowing that millions of people will be watching this. And if I stuff this up, I'll never be allowed to do it again, So it was
well, and not just only that, there can't be many opportunities to just go, hey, I'm going to go pull a plane.
No, look, 21 years since the last time someone did it in Australia, and it was David Huxley pulling a 737. Like, you get the opportunities to go down to your local place and pull your local Cessna or something like that. That's a tiny little plane. Or whatever, just an old plane sitting at an air yard. But to pull a Qantas 737 that 45 minutes after I did it took off to Sydney, the pilot was there. He was in the plane. We were chatting, and he's like, yeah, as soon as you're done, we'll taxi out and take off. Like, it wasn't like this was a whole day just for this. It was as soon as that plane's done, as soon as it's finished, they went back inside, redid the computer system, redid everything, and it taxied out. And as I was leaving, it took off.
Wow.
And 3 years later, I flew to Darwin 3 years later to do a competition, and I flew in the same plane I pulled.
Oh man, that's sick.
It was crazy. I was walking out onto the, and I do it now. I'm terrible. I look on every plane I fly with to see if it's the same one. And I walked down the to get onto the plane. You know how you've got the glass windows you can look out, and I've looked and gone, that name looks really familiar. I've quickly scanned through my phone and found it, and I've gone, oh my God, it is the same plane.
Damn.
And the air hostess on the plane was like, you look like familiar. And I've gone, oh, okay. And she's like, did you pull a plane? I've gone, yep. And she's like, oh, cool. And then we just happened to chat, and I've said, yeah, this plane we're on now is the one I pulled. She's like, really? I'm going to go tell the pilot. And I'm like, So yeah, as I'm walking down the plane to get off, the pilot's just spoken to me for about half an hour before I got off the plane. So
that's amazing.
that was really cool, really cool.
Damn. No, man, and it's one of those things, like, you've got all these amazing stories to tell about these particular occasions in your life, and you made it a point, and I think now more than ever, self-compassion is a massive thing, and it's ironic that it probably hasn't been touched on for so long, and then now it's like, be compassionate to others, but you've got to really pull it back and be compassionate to yourself. And as much as you have this amazing team behind you, you're sitting in front of me going, you know what, I'm pretty stoked about me. And that's not cocky, it's not, don't look at it that way. To anybody listening, is that it really comes down to, you have to be compassionate to yourself and then compassionate to others. And that allowed you to see different things and be open to different opportunities. So what got you into Circus and that little transition?
Oh, look, ever since I started Strongman as a kid, I loved Circus Strongman. I'd like to call myself a bit of an old soul. So I love Frank Sinatra. I love the three tenors. I love old cars. I love old clothing. I love, I grew up around old stuff, and I just love people that have been doing stuff before my time. Like, I enjoy that. I mean, Circus Strongman is truly where we started, the modern strongman, that is. People have been lifting stones and stuff since day dot. That's been the form of testing manhood, is by who lifts the most. But for modern strongman and modern performing was this. And I did all the events, and strongman had changed a lot since when I first started, and it wasn't the sport I was involved in. It's changed a lot, and you know what? That's absolutely fine. That's fine. Things change over time, and is it what I want to do anymore? No. Is it what I enjoy? I still enjoy strongman. I still enjoy aspects of it, but I don't enjoy the competitive side like I used to either. The competitive drive is there, but it's not there to win competitions and stuff like that. So I just loved the idea of doing strongman. And what I was always about was trying to bring what I had as a professional strongman to the circus stage. So guys like Louis Cyr, guys like Eugene Sandow, guys like Paul Anderson, who were just phenomenally strong men, but performed their feats. So I always wanted to perform my feats of strength, but now I've learned to bring both aspects, and I'm learning the acrobatic side of strongman to the acrobatic side of circus, which I had no clue about. I don't know acro. I don't never did gymnastics or anything like that. And what people have got to understand is that it's not how strong you are in a sense of weights that you lift, because there's not one circus performer that I've met that would be able to do 1/5 of the stuff I can do. But the things they do with people blow my mind. And as a athlete, I was always impressed by things that other people could do that I couldn't. So, like, you can toss caber, right? When I compete, when I competed, ask Luke Reynolds. I sucked. I just sucked at it. I was no good at it. Like, I remember doing a Highland Games where Luke challenged me to turn a caber on a pick. So I picked. As soon as it hit my hand, I tried to turn it rather than wait because I had all the power in the world. I just couldn't do caber. I didn't have the confidence to do it. While Luke could turn it. While Luke Reynolds.
Yeah.
It is. It's hard. Like, I watched Luke. He'd turn a caber on a 5-cent piece. You know, like, and I watch guys like yourself who are good throwers, and I'm not a good thrower, but I appreciate what other people can do that I can't do because it fucking amazes me because I can't do it. My mum was a singer, my uncle was a singer, and I'm amazed by singers because they just can change your emotion by their voice, and I love that. I think that's so cool. And circus is a lot like that. It's the feel you have with your flyer. So I'm being taught how to be a base, which is the guy on the bottom that does a lot of the throwing, a lot of the holding, etc., etc. And I remember doing the photo shoot before the Fringe, which is the big show here in Adelaide, where my coach to be we were doing a photo shoot, and he's like, look, we'll do the photo shoot at the Circus school. And I had this lovely girl who was a gymnast come in and my photographer come down. And I was just doing some, the typical strongman ones where you're picking them up and holding above your head. And my circus guy's just like, try this one, which was a beautiful, what they call high star, which is when you're holding her up above your head and your other arm's out. So you're basically holding her waist and holding her above your head. And
so for anybody watching on the for anybody listening on the podcast, it's basically like doing, when you shoulder a stone, but your arm's fully extended and your other arm's out because you're posing.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly right. And, it's one of those things where I just could not get it right. I was muscling her and I just couldn't hold it. My coach, who's been a professional circus performer for 15 years and a coach in like Berlin and Germany and Belgium, like one of the best coaches in the world, goes up, he's 80 kilos soaking wet, bang, straight up, locked in position. That's how you do it. And I'm sitting there going, that's bull. You can't do that. And it was just because he's got feel. He instills trust in the other person. But you've got to feel the person. Circus people are very different to strongman competitors, and it was a big learning curve for me because I'm not that type of person because I've been an athlete lifting weights and it's a bar, it's a stone, it doesn't have a feel. You get, it does, sorry, don't get me wrong, it does have a feel and you do feel the weight, but there's no trust between you and the stone. You pick it up, you feel the weight, you know where it is, you can feel where it's moving and all that. So you do have a feel for the stone, but the person who's flying on you needs to trust you. You need to have that beautiful connection. And you have to actually learn that. And for me, it's learning about having that connection with somebody else's body. It's very, I guess, hippie in a way. And it's really beautiful. And I've watched the professionals here in Adelaide, and they just do some things that just, like I said, amaze me and inspire me to do these types of things. But as I was saying, I want to bring the best of what I can learn from acro. Again, like yourself, I'm coming into circus as a mature athlete with injuries and issues and mental and physical. And, they're coming in from gymnast backgrounds where they just have so much body control, and I just love it. I could sit back and watch these guys do stuff all day, and they're so giving to me to teach me and give me their time, and I love it. And if I can bring both aspects of the strongman that you see of me on the competition platform versus the circus strongman you see, I'm hoping to make a nice big gel between the two and be something like the old guys were back in the 1800s and the 1900s, if I can. So we'll see what happens.
And again, though, you like to get into these micro niches, right? And like there's a niche and then there's a micro niche, and there's not much circus out there. In the little world of circus, there's probably a pretty good circus following, gathering, and all that sort of stuff. But again, with so much happening in the modern day, it's not really talked about that often. And we're still in awe when we see, the pop-up tent down the road and the circus comes into town. But I think it's one of those things where there's just so much going on and there's so much white noise, and And it's the same with Highland Games, you know, in the sense it's the same with Strongman, is that like when we ran the virtual Highland Games, we had people go, there's a Highland Games in Victoria? Like, and you're like, yeah, there's 3 of them. And like, are you kidding me? But it's just one of those things that you just don't know what you don't know. And I wanted to touch on, because man, I felt your connection on that conversation, because when I did dancing, and here's a funny story. Some people know this story about me, but when I played gridiron and I was getting recruited, I had a couple of scouts come out, and they basically put me up against some of the top wide receivers in Canada. And I just done a 2-a-day practice, and that's basically 4 hours of practice in a day. So 2 hours lunch, 2 hours, and you're either doing drills or something. So they put me through this. We're doing one-on-one drills. Quarterback's there trying to pass and catch. I'm the defense, and I'm trying to just literally take these guys, you know, and get them out of their own zone. And these guys are flying. Like, these are two of the guys that ended up playing in the CFL and the NFL. Wow. And I'm like, I'm not that fast. I just have really good angles, and that's what I was known for, was my angles. And he came up to me and said, dude, your hips suck. Like, seriously, you suck. Like, your hips are brutal, and like they don't pull punches. And he said, you know, you got to look into Jerry Rice. I said, okay, Jerry Rice, like one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. Sure, whatever. So anyways, I found out he did ballet. And I said, all right, well, if it got Jerry Rice to where he is, I'm going to go try it, because I got to get somewhere. And when I walked into the local dance studio, one of the trade-offs is if I did ballet training, I also had to do a contemporary dance.
Awesome. This is great. This is awesome.
So the lead, who just so happened to be a regular at the movie store, her mother owned the dance studio, and one thing led to another. And I called her for late fees and said, hey, I was just wondering, I'm trying to inconspicuously call you and tell you I want to sign up for dance. And she's like, well, there's only one other male at the studio, and you know, he's been doing it for years, and you're walking in as a 6'1", 100-kilo gridiron player who's probably got a beard and dirty as hell and come right off the field. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. So they put me into the contemporary, and one of the things I had to do was do a lift. And my first lift was, and I don't know the name of it, and I probably lost on it, but she ran at me, and I had to catch her with my hands on her thighs, and basically push. Oh my God. So I've got the owner of the studios, who's the mother of the daughter, and I'm like, this is insane. And then on top of that, they're like, oh, by the way, once you've done this, we're not going to put you on stage for your ballet recital. That's completely fine. But you're actually on stage for your contemporary dance. And I'm like, okay, like on stage. Like, yeah. You know, like we've sold, 150 tickets to the locals. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be awesome. So I basically had to play a tree in a forest that was standing still and then willowing in the wind and blowing in the wind. And then she was Mother Nature, and supposedly Mother Nature had to run and the tree had to catch her as like some, sort of, I don't know what the heck the scene was. And I remember going, it took probably 8 weeks for us to build up our connection enough where we were trusting, because the amount of fails, man, were huge. And when they were fails, they're bad fails. Like, especially when you're in that position. So anybody out there that's got an imagination, you can just imagine where this is going, and the mom's watching, and you're just like, this is out of control. And I remember she bowled me over once as she was running towards me. I put my hands up and I missed it. And dancers have incredible bodies, and they're strong as all oxes, like incredible, right? And she's bowled me over like a defense, like basically a wide receiver would have. Like doing a stop block, for gridiron fans out there. And I've fallen on my back. She's on top of me. Mom's going, guys, get up. What the heck you doing? And I'm just like, I've just been hit by a freight train, but I can't tell her that. Like, you know what I mean? And, but it took so long for that connection. And then it was ironic that, I'm doing some Highland dancing behind the scenes. And I know we put out that video, but I've kept with it in my off-season training. And, one of the big things with that is, again, connection. But the trade-off with that is that with my throwing, it's a connection with me in the ground. And I really had to understand that relationship, because in a lot of cases, you're like, push up. So everything's up. But then all of a sudden, when a good throws coach comes out and says, I want you to stay as grounded as possible and pivoting to the ground, you're like, what do you mean you want me to be one with the ground? Like, I'm supposed to go up. And they're like, no, no, no. And, as a weightlifting coach and a CrossFit coach and that sort of stuff, it's always one of the big things as a coach. You're like, stay grounded, yet everybody wants to pop, right? Yeah. So I just had to bring that segue because I don't think there's many of us out there that have done that.
That story's fantastic, man. Seriously, like they would have just loved to have you there. Big guy, time. Strong, fit, they would have just loved you for being you, man. And that's the coolest part about that story. And I can only imagine that it would have helped you for your gridiron and helped you with everything. Just freeing up in that free movement, you would have just looked so much better. And, it's really cool, man. Thank you for sharing that. That's fucking awesome.
Cheers. It definitely got some better looks from different schools and stuff like that. And, too bad the head couldn't take the extra, the drama of it all and too many concussions later. But, I think one of the things is that you've got to step out of your comfort zone. And everybody said that before, but you really got to do it, and you don't really get change if you don't challenge something, and I just want to, point out that, Jordan, like, I'm 35 years old. And I know I'm not an ageist by any means because I couldn't even remember my age the other day when somebody asked me it. I had to look at my driver's license. And, I think what you've accomplished in a short period of time is pretty incredible. And you've got all this more time to go about it. And in the careers of Strongman and Highland Games and whatever you might do, it's just one small aspect of the big picture.
Absolutely, 100%.
And I just want to, sort of end on this note is that what you've done for the charities, the team around you, the people around you is remarkable, and that really is that lasting approach. I think it was in a movie and it's been in poems that, on your gravestone, you want to have, I died with honor and I died doing something. And I, like I said, when I did the virtual Highland Games, the big thing for me was, you can make all the money in the world, but I want to have a lasting effect. So it's quite awesome to have that sort of conversation.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you can't take money with you. Your money's gonna be left here, and if you can leave a lasting reminder, and look, I guess through my career as an athlete, I was never the biggest guy. I was never the strongest guy either. But I won a whole lot of competitions on the way I did things. And I always go back to Frank Sinatra and, I did it my way. I did the sport my way, the way I loved it. I tried to be as respectful as the old guys coming through. I always hated talking myself up. It was always something I really didn't like to do, but you have to learn to do that. Without being big-headed, it's about knowing, I guess, self-worth in that sense, without being disrespectful, and when you retire, like I did, I retired very young. I think I retired from Strongman when I was in my late 20s, which isn't very long, but I'd been doing sport. I wrestled at Flinders Uni when I was 12 to 15 and weightlifting from 15 to mid-20s and Strongman from my teens into mid-20s. And I always wanted to help the next generation of athletes come through, to build that family like you're doing with Highland Games, build that community, because we're a big family. We are a family. We're brothers and sisters, It doesn't matter what sport you do. It doesn't matter your skin color, your ethnicity. We're all human. We're all trying to do something. We're all trying to become stronger. Are there dickheads in the world? Bloody oath there are. They're always going to be that. But guess what? If you can build a good community, that good community will build out and build out and build out and build out. And there'll be less dicks in the world. There'll be less people that are, sometimes it's just you have to learn and teach. I've learned some of the biggest things from people you'd never expect to learn from. And then I've been lucky to compete against the best guys in the world in multiple different disciplines and learned so many things from them. And look, again, from today, I've learned so many different things about yourself and making that connection between yourself and myself with similar type of situations in our past. And, I think a lot of athletes, you know, you will retire one day. What are your plans after retirement? What do you want to leave as your mark on the sport? Hey, look, do you want to be the guy that wins the most Australia's Strongest Man? If that is what your goal is and that is your lasting goal, that's more power to you for doing that. You know, but don't think you're going to come into the sport and make millions of dollars, because, you know, that's not the way to look at it. You know, if you make millions of dollars from it, good for you. Good. My heart goes out to you for doing that. But, you know, always keep a clear head, always love what you do, respect the guys around you, but also pay respect to the guys that came before you, because if it wasn't for them, where would you be?
So that is the perfect way to end this. And what I want to do is just give you the opportunity. If you've got any sponsors or any shout outs you want to do, drop them now, and have a bit of a forum.
Yeah, look, man, do you know what? I want to just thank you personally. Thank you very much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all the work you're doing with Highland Games. As we said before coming online, Highland Games has steadily gone down. The old committees, you got to remember, the generation of the people running committees are very old now. My first competition in Strongman was at Mount Barker Highland Games, South Australia's Strongest Man. Mount Barker Highland Games now no longer exists, which is just devastating. So I do a lot of stuff at the medieval festivals and stuff now, and doing the demos there. And so it's guys like yourself who are taking the next aspect, the next step forward. Guys like myself, you know, you're already doing the things that I try and do, and build something for the next generation to go with, and build the community, build the friendship, and I love it. So thank you very much for having me on your show to start off with. I guess to all my sponsors, Flex Fitness, as you can see plastered across my chest. I guess the Wildlife, Gentech Nutrition, Riderwear, my new chiropractor on Winston. I could be here listing them off all day. Massage Life, the state weightlifting teams, Hilltop CrossFit, and Soul 365 Powerhouse Gym. I'm sure I'll miss one. Minus 110 in the city, cryotherapy. All these guys are so helpful. These guys have kept me injury-free basically my whole career. 15 years. I've only had one surgery in 15 years, and I've been so lucky. And you know, and to anyone and everyone, the competitors who I've competed with through the years, if you watch this, my heart goes out to you guys. Thank you so much. I enjoy beating you, but I'm sure you guys enjoy beating me more than that. So again, yeah, look, my career has been a great one. I would never change it, no matter what. And I look forward to seeing more great things from yourself, more great things from the Strongman community. And I love your clothing line, man. I'm gonna have to get myself one of those shirts, I think, sometime soon. But thank you again.
No, thank you. And if you guys want to check out any more, we'll post Jordan's socials down below. Check out some of his sponsors. If you've never heard of them, check them out. This is where those small businesses grow, and we all help each other out in this trying time. And without just the last thing, we need to have a chat, you know, person to person after this is all over, and have a dram, and maybe throw something. So thanks, Jordan. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.